Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the Esports Racing League Premier Series live tonight from Richmond Raceway, just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I am James Pike, voice of Podium Esports, here on the ERL Twitch channel with Justin Prince alongside me in the booth, and Ryan Bauer producing tonight's broadcast, the production trailer. And Justin, this is just a really, really good racetrack. Short track, flat track, a lot of driving skill required to be good here. No surprise that a lot of the winners at Richmond in years past, both in sim and in real life, have gone on to win championships, win big races. You got to have some talent to get around this place.
Absolutely. It's such a rhythm-focused track and tactical short track because you need to be careful on how you enter the corner, how fast you go into the corner, how you control the throttle in apex, how much you try and hold on to the yellow line along the bottom of the racetrack, and how you exit the corners. All of those can be so difficult here to manage as a driver, but at the same time, the competitors love that part of the circuit.
Well, the competition here loves that part of the circuit. And a driver, I think, looking for redemption after last night. Jimmy Mullis in the 46 machine was so strong, was so good in the Coke Series race last night. Just didn't quite have the luck he needed to finish up the front. But here he comes with another shot to try and get a victory at Richmond in the ERL competition this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Mullis had a fast car. It was shown in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. I think he's going to be a fast contender tonight based on already what we've seen in terms of pace for him throughout the week and the amount of preparation he had on this track alone. So it's going to be difficult to try and beat him tonight depending on where he starts in the field.
One of those drivers you're going to have to watch out for, and he's got the thing hooked up already top of the board in qualifying with a 21.549, and incidentally also top of the point standings too by 10 over Brandon McKissick. Alex Bell sits in third with 257 points, so 12 points back of your race leader. Pretty tight battle amongst those front three as we get set to see who tries to establish themselves top of this board as we start coming down the home stretch in the spring season for the ERL.
And keep an eye on the driver ninth on the left side of your screen as well. That is Austin Dillon, who is ready to make his first appearance this season. Got a few laps of preparation in, looked pretty decent in pace. Glad to see him in the field tonight and challenge some of these virtual competitors.
Of course, Austin Dillon, driver for Richard Childress Racing, also owner of Team Dillon Management, of which Anthony Alfredo is a part of. And Dillon also a fellow Forsyth Country Day School Furies graduate as well. So glad to have another representative from Northwest North Carolina in the field this evening as we make it to the final minute of qualifying. And you'll see some names that begin to come in. Austin Craven, also of TDM in here. Blake Reynolds, driver for Team Dillon Esports, running in this race tonight as well. So a few familiar faces mixed in with a lot of names. And John Dragonetti, another one that I think is worth highlighting, making his debut this evening. Had a very rough few weeks after the passing of his girlfriend, Kelsey Pinner, but everybody in the community has done a tremendous job, I think, coming together, and wish John the best in what is a difficult time for everybody, but I think especially for that driver, the number 14 car.
Absolutely. Somebody that's definitely a big part of the iRace community. Unfortunately, hear what's been happening with that. I'll have to see how he does tonight in the field.
We run down the final 10 seconds in qualifying and then get set to bring you tonight's action from Richmond Raceway. And oh boy, as we look at the starting grid, look at the two drivers at the top of the board in the department of things that Richmond Raceway Esports will love. It is a Richmond Raceway Esports lockout at their home track. Zach Novak and Jimmy Mullis go 1 and 2 on the board to start first and second in tonight's race. Brandon McKissick will roll off from the third position. So good points battle right in there. Braxton DeWeese begins tonight from fourth. Fifth will be the 62 of Cody McCauley. Anthony Alfredo will start from the sixth spot. Seventh will be the 3 of Blake Reynolds. Alec Chamberlain will start from eighth. Ninth will be Alexander Krumke. And Lucas Cram, Sportsman Division driver who's torn it up with multiple wins in that series on Monday nights, will start from P10.
Austin Dillon starts at 11 tonight with a 22.027 in qualifying. John Midget starts alongside him in row number 6 tonight. Andrew Rombo starts in 13th with Nick Olson in 14th, Craig McConey in 15th, Austin Craven and John Dragonotti round out the drivers putting qualifying times. Rest the drivers via provisionals: Graham Bowen, Jose Solis Jr., Landon Huffman amongst those drivers deep in the field.
As we turn our attention to the track facts and tell you a little bit more about Richmond Raceway. Technically speaking, we are in Henrico County, just outside of Richmond proper, but the Richmond City Fairgrounds are where this track was built. There's a whole lot that goes on around this area of the city. It's a 3/4 of a mile, 1.21 kilometer circuit that opened in 1946 and was modified to its current configuration in 1988. 14 degrees of banking in the turns here at Richmond, 8 degrees of banking on the front stretch, 2 degrees of banking on the back stretch. In sim, it is currently May 15th, 2020, the default day for iRacing, just around 3:30 in the afternoon local time. We go for 85 laps, 63.75 miles, 102.85 kilometers this evening. And if you are so inclined to find out about the weather, it's hot. 90 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, 122 degrees track temp, winds to the north of 5 miles an hour, humidity of 55%. Sun is beaming down on Richmond Raceway. This race is going to be slick. This race is going to be hot. This race is going to be very tricky, very slippery, very interesting to see how it's all going to pan out.
Yeah, that's a good 15-20 degrees or so, give or take Fahrenheit, compared to what some of these competitors seen in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. And they were expecting that race to have the risk of self-spins on cold tires. There's the risk of that for these drivers tonight. Gonna have to be very careful on the throttle throughout the race tonight until the tires come up to temp, until the rubber also builds up on the circuit.
As Mullis and Novak will lead us to green. How impressive the two Toyota drivers who have been putting on a show, I think, in the Coke Series. We know Jimmy had more speed than his finish gave him credit for last night, but Novak has really turned his season around. 2 really great runs at Bristol and then at Richmond last night, and almost seems like the low downforce package is playing right into his hands. He's looked very comfortable.
Absolutely, and that was one of the main differences he talked about with me before that Coca-Cola race last night, was trying to get used to that again. And a couple drivers for that last night expected some of the competitors who say prefer low downforce in 2018 to be up towards the front. Novak, he wasn't feeling as confident as his teammate Joey Moen was going in, he admitted. But in the end, he actually showed some great speed and good confidence as the event progressed.
As we get set to go racing for 85 laps from Richmond Raceway, Zach Novak takes off. We are underway from Richmond. Really good stuff from Novak to get out in front of his teammate by about a car length or 2. McKissick will slide immediately into third. First battle on the track will be right around Anthony Alfredo and Cody McCauley, who made his debut in the ERL on Monday night, the Sportsman Series here at Richmond, and then won the race, looking to sweep Richmond this week in ERL competition.
Yeah, very fast rookie, and already he's looking pretty good off the corners. That is one of the more trickier parts of coming around this racetrack, is timing up those corner exits to make sure you don't burn up the right front, while also making sure you don't slam into the outside wall or bunch up drivers behind you. Already he's gained a couple car lengths from the cars in front.
They continue to shuffle on. It is Zach Novak still in control of this. Jimmy Mullis in P2. P3 is Brandon McKissick. DeWeese now sitting behind McKissick in that 4th spot. I think that's where the battle really is going to be, as Novak and Mullis start pulling off the front of this field. Here comes DeWeese in that number 8 machine, looking for room around the 87.
Yeah, and DeWeese is trying to, looks like a little different things, trying to diamond the car off the corner just a little bit to get an extra bit of a run. But that's where the patience game comes in here at Richmond. Many drivers have talked about throughout this week, if you push too much too early, you're likely falling off after 30 laps. If you feel confident you're faster than somebody, then absolutely take that move if you can. And right now it seems like McKissick is saving and bunching everybody up.
could be saving. Is it really going to do him much good, though? I think that's the question. Is it worth it to save at this point? Do you think you're going to go green all the way? And are you worried? Well, there's the answer to that question. No sooner than I make that point, then Nick Olson goes around in turn 2, and we have our first yellow flag of the evening. And Austin Dillon bounces off the 24, and the 03 for this race and the 24 get into it. Graham Bolin in the 18 gets into Olson and sends him around and up into the fence.
Yeah, I don't think Dillon realized at one moment that they had Bolin coming 3 wide on the bottom of the racetrack. Dillon was trying to arc it down normally, and just everybody pinballed around. Could have been much worse for a couple of the drivers there, but that's where you need to be paying attention to what's going on in your mirror as well as listen to your spotter.
Going to be very particular about where you plant these cars in the corners. We saw so many issues on corner entry last night in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series event here. Have a feeling we're going to see it throughout the week. And there's plenty of Richmond coming up this week on Podium Esports and across the iRacing world, if you are so inclined, as all these drivers come down pit road for service for the first time. It's no question everybody is going to take at least some form of tires. Maybe fuel might be the interesting one. We'll see how the stops pan out, see if there are any issues. Looks like Mullis and Novak into their spots in good order and good shape. And as they get ready to roll off here, we will remind you all of everything that comes your way on the iRacing Esports Network and the Podium Esports Network in the world of iRacing this weekend. It continues tomorrow night with Ryan Vargas's eTrucks Rumble at Richmond Raceway. The big event qualifying night tonight. Over 225 drivers competing for 20 spots to make it into the main show, which will feature Ron Capps, Alexander Rossi, and Juan Pablo Montoya, amongst others. A tremendous amount of drivers in that field. Green flag on Podium Esports coverage will start at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. And then Friday night on the iRacing Esports Network, Porsche Club of America Sim Racing beginning to wind down its season. A few more races left for them. They go to Silverstone for the next event at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, April 17th on the iRacing Esports Network. And then this weekend, 2 events to talk to you about. 3, actually, if we're going to be technical. The IndyCar iRacing Challenge heads to Twin Ring Motegi at 2:30 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, and you can find that on NBCSN and the NBC Sports app and NBCSports.com/live. Then the Rowdy Energy Super Select Series comes your way this Saturday night on Speed 51's Facebook channel and speed51.com, and 7:30 p.m. start for that event, and should be a lot of fun there. And then we come back to Richmond to wrap it all up. The NASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational Series is back after the Easter break with racing from Richmond at 1 p.m. on Fox, Fox Sports 1, and the Fox Sports app in the United States, and one of the TSNs in Canada. Justin, I figure you'll know that one better than me.
Yeah, yes, indeed. And many fans I definitely know have been excited about seeing those races on television. It's been some pretty entertaining action. Going to be curious to see how some of the drivers do here at Richmond, especially with what we've seen over the past couple of days. But so far, it's been Richmond Raceway Esports contenders in control.
As Novak got another really good launch. I don't know if Mullis quite got the same. Might be an opportunity here for Brandon McKissick to get to the inside, but Mullis just dives it down deep, shuts the door on him, doesn't leave him any room whatsoever, and continues on. So Novak and Mullis 1 and 2. McKissick there. Here comes Blake Reynolds to the inside of McKissick, and now he's, or to the inside of Braxton DeWeese, rather. He clears DeWeese. It's now McKissick that Reynolds is hunting down.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Reynolds can do. He's already gained 3 positions, in part because he started a lot so far on the bottom side. Just got to be patient, though, as a driver, because remember, when there's been tendencies of the right rear for burning off quickly if it pushed too hard, such as at Phoenix, he nearly burned it to the rims.
Got to be careful about that. Yep, that right rear in particular has been, let's say, maybe not Blake Reynolds' best friend over the course of these first few races, but he's had some good finishes, and he's had a few good weeks here. He won the ERL Premier Series race in Texas. He had a good finish in Bristol last week, and is beginning to put it together on the short tracks, which I kind of get the sense he's a bit of a similar case to Zach Novak, in that the short tracks may well end up being his home. He might feel a little bit more comfortable there than the mile and a half.
Now, it looks like he's very comfortable when it comes to this low downforce 750 horsepower package. Many drivers are, it seems. One that's really charged into the field, Graham Bowen, already a plus 11 now, trying to make the move on Alfredo. He's been putting quick work on every single driver in this field on quarter entry, quarter apex, and quarter exit.
Also, note Jimmy Mullis beginning to run down his teammate from Richmond Raceway Esports, Zach Novak, as Novak continues to pace this field. But for how much longer? Mullis was the faster of the two cars in open practice last night. Also looked like he had the speed advantage during the race before he got caught up in incidents that eventually took him out of competition. But makes me wonder how much longer Mullis is really going to sit behind, although he's definitely benefiting from the fact that Brandon McKissick is holding up Blake Reynolds, Braxton DeWeese and company in 4th, 5th, and then Cody McCauley in 6th.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mullis is the quicker of the two right now, absolutely, in terms of lap times, in terms of how they're handling the race car in the corners. It's going to be the interesting thing, though, you hit on, though, of does Mullis just be patient for about 3-4 laps, see how Novak does, save his tires then, and then make the move? Or if he gets a run, just go to the inside, have Novak let him on go and switch positions. That's got to be something that both of them are thinking about, especially since Mullis is late braking a little bit more compared to Novak.
Mullis in that late break trying to really put the pressure on his teammate. Meanwhile, Graham Boland up into P6. He just got around Cody McCauley in the 62 machine. And now Braxton DeWeese is next in line. And talk about that number 18 machine. He has really begun to start moving up through this field.
Yeah, this 18 machine is just on a rail, it seems, right now. In terms of pace, nearly identical to the race leaders at the moment. Top 5 quickest car on the racetrack at the moment, each and every time, depending on when he's going side by side. I think Bowen's got the pace. It's just a matter of, is he going to burn up his equipment by having to cut through all these cars?
Might not matter. Another yellow flag. It's John Midget in the 14, or the 11 rather, who's going around on this racetrack. Got the Johns mixed up there, but big send in from Steve Durham in the 10, who just did not get on the brakes at all and got right into Midget and sent him around in the middle of the racing groove in 1 and 2. So Midget goes around, yellow flag comes out. We all likely have another opportunity for pit stops just in case.
Yeah, that's a moment where if you're Steve Durham, time to dial the brake bias back a little bit. Just absolutely sent it in big time. Way too strong from 5 car lanes back. And from what we've seen so far, no one's willing to risk taking 2 tires this early on, especially since if you stayed out last night on even 10, 15 lap old tires, by 20 laps in, you were falling off a cliff in terms of pace.
All true, all valid. I also think no one even wants to mess with the 2 tires. I think you're going for 4 just about every time you step into your box this evening. It just depends on what some of these drivers decide to do over the course of the rest of this race and how the next 60 laps or so are going to play out. But it's been 4 tires across the board for the first 5 on pit road, and they all begin to charge up through the field. Really good stop for Blake Reynolds, though. I think he might have picked up a few positions on pit road.
Yeah, Reynolds ended up having another good stop. Still a +3 from him. The problem is he's going to have to start on the outside line. So it's going to be tricky, remember, to get by someone like McKissick, who is not as quick as seems on the short run and trying to preserve his equipment as much as he was in that 87 machine in front of the Coca-Cola car last time.
So Reynolds is going to restart P4 in all this. Lights will likely go off on the pace car next time by. And I think while we have a moment, we do owe the folks at Richmond Raceway a lot of credit and a lot of love throughout this week. This is a racetrack that has, I think, really been a pioneer in eNASCAR in particular. They were the first track to jump in and shine on and start their own scene. They were the first track to really embrace iRacing as a platform, and now They've done a whole bunch in the last few years. They've now signed two of the best drivers in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Earlier this year, they just announced a development program. They signed two really fast drivers in Raja Karuth and Garrett Maines to that program. It really is becoming an empire in the esports world that Richmond is building.
Yeah, absolutely. They've done all the right things when it comes to building their esports program, it seems, over the past couple seasons. In fact, having a virtual race week throughout the campaign, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series kicked things off with that, James, and for that regard, they're holding all kinds of different events on iRacing, virtual autograph sessions, and of course, taking part in the Pro Invitational, including having their own pre-race shows involving some of their team members, such as Novak.
And I think Raj is going to be on, I want to say, Facebook Live or Instagram Live, one of the two.
Yeah.
Sunday at 12. So big stuff coming for Richmond this week as Zach Novak goes back to the point. McKissick, though, got a good restart underneath Bullis. He'll be there this time. There's no dropping down to the bottom for the 46. He's also got Braxton DeWeese in zone. Maybe nowhere for Blake Reynolds to go. And Graham Boland on the inside. I think that's right where he wants to be, fast as that 18 has been.
And McKissick, unsurprised, actually let Moas right on down, backed off a bit early down the straightaway. I think he wants to make sure he doesn't burn up the tires. Some of that is willing to risk things, though. That 18 machine of Bowen, nearly 3 wide in turn 1 and 2, and he's not afraid to force it.
No problem whatsoever, and Boland's got plenty of speed and talent and pace. In the Pro Series last year, he was one of the fastest drivers week in, week out, and was right up there in the thick of the point standings. He cleared his way and qualified into this year's eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series with a week of racing to spare. So you know he's got talent. It's just a matter of whether or not he's got time and patience to get around these final 4 cars and get to the race lead. Reynolds is next in that 3 machine. McKissick, though, putting on a really impressive show for himself. Of the non-eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series drivers, it's the 87 that's the highest runner in the field so far.
Yeah, he's looked pretty impressive so far, trying to hold on still in 3rd position. He's made it difficult for anyone to try and make a pass on him. No one's been really risking too much trying to dive underneath. I think he's just being patient. You never know if you're going to get a long run. Yes, this is a track that does tend to have some short runs before you get one big long run in the middle of events. So as long as McKissick runs his own pace, this might pay dividends in a long run, but the more this happens, the more others such as Bowen, though, want to push.
Boland just dove it right to the inside, got around Blake Reynolds. There was no question the 18 was going to make that move. Now he's got McKissick in his sights. And talk about a driver who's got speed. Last time by, he was the only one that was in the same zip code as Novak and Mullis, who both were down to the 21.6s. Boland was only a 10th slower, even with that pass. So might be the 18 we really need to watch for, especially in the second half of this race.
Absolutely. He was one of the drivers who, remember, elected to start at the back of the field, wait to see what happened in front, and instead he's just carved his way to the field like hot butter. I'm curious to see how he approaches the pass on McKissick. Everybody's been basically letting him on going, knowing how quick he is. If there's another yellow, he might make things tricky for the top 2 based on how things are going.
Novak still in good shape, though. I think he's actually stretched it out over Jimmy Mullis this time, but all eyes on McKissick Boland, because now here comes the 18. He's right there. He's gained on McKissick. He may look to the inside, may wait for a moment, may make the move a little bit later than we think. But Boland is there. Battle is on for 3rd, and now here comes the 18 to the inside. Probably won't be much of a contest. It'll go off into 1, and Graham Boland is now up to P3.
Yep, absolutely. McKissick just let him on going, knowing that interstate batteries machine is absolutely hooked up. Now it becomes the true test, I think, here, James, though. Can he find a way to catch up to Novak and Moas if this goes green? Because he's got to somehow close up 10-15 car lengths between him and Moas.
They were all in the 21.8s that last time by. It was Mullis, then Novak, then Boland. Or Mullis, Boland, Novak. 1, 2, 3 on the speed charts. So they come around the stripe this time by. Novak was slow. Yeah, Novak slower than Mullis and slower than Boland too. So basically, 3rd place and 2nd place are both catching the leader.
Oh, trouble, front stretch. Austin Craven spun around.
Austin Craven goes around on the front stretch. We stay green. No yellow flags yet. Jimmy Mullis, though, really starting to gain on his teammate. We may have a battle for the lead before we have Graham Boland join this fight.
And now, because of what happened to Austin Craven, there's a chance that might be traffic. You can see what just happened here in the backdrop. It was on the front straightaway. Him and Dragon Eye were going back and forth for position, and eventually that 30 just snapped around on the front straightaway. I think might have got a bit of help in the back.
So the 30 gets some help on the back straight away. Meanwhile, we look at the times one more time. It was Novak who was slower than both Boland and Mullis, but Mullis has been the fastest of these three pretty consistently for the past 6, 7, 8 laps or so.
Yeah, both of them have been pretty consistent. Talked about a little bit about this on the eNASCAR broadcast, that Mullis himself put in about 2,000 laps. That's around, give or take, the standard for a majority of teams. They'll put in at least 1,000 laps. Some of it, of course, comes into trying to test out different setups, different adjustments, getting full green flag runs. So you learn every nuance of the racetrack for each and every visit you go to. And that's what these two drivers, I think, have shown, have prepped themselves very well for this campaign, and have shown it here tonight in the Euro competition.
You would think that the Richmond Raceway Esports drivers would know how to get around Richmond Raceway. That almost seems like a too obvious point to make, but it's very intriguing to see it actually pan out here. They really are the fastest drivers at Richmond. Novak and Mullis continuing their way around the racetrack, and Boland, to his credit, has been faster than just about everybody else in this field, but he hasn't been that much faster than either the 90 or the 46. He's still about a second back of the two leaders.
Here's my concern once again. If he tries to push too hard to catch back up to the leaders, there's a chance he might not reach them if this continues the way this race is flown. So if you burn up those tires, you're likely out of the picture. You're either hoping for a caution flag or conserving at least a little bit, or trying to maintain ground in the cars in front with these two machines. So in the next, say, 20 laps, you're flying and catching up to them about a tenth a lap.
So here's the bigger question I think we need to ask ourselves and pay attention to in this case. If you are Jimmy Mullis, how do you go about this? If you're Zach Novak, how do you maintain the lead and not worry about the driver behind you who has more speed?
I think at this point, first things first, if you're Mullis, again, may as well be patient. It's a teammate. You don't want to end up getting an incident with the teammate. A lot of times, if you have a teammate who knows that you're faster than them, they'll likely let you go. At the same time, Novak, I think, is near dead even in pace. He's just taking the corner a little bit more slower in, faster off. That's where he's got his preference, it seems, in terms of handling. So I think if you're Novak, you're just keeping an eye on your mirror. Keep on going up and down, glancing to see where your teammate is, and just making sure that you don't make a mistake and end up, say, slowing too much in the corner and holding them up. That time got a really off the gas.
Really good run there from Jimmy Mullis, who really is starting to put the pressure on Novak now. There's no question about it. He was faster the last time by. They come across the stripe, and Mullis was actually a little bit slower, but I think that's by virtue of the fact that he's just there. And there goes Novak up the racetrack just a little bit as we worked our way past halfway. When does Jimmy Mullis make his move?
I think he might make his move pretty soon. He has gotten the opportunity, like I was trying to say there, James, the chance to save behind his teammate. No need to really push, just match pace. And I think he's starting to show the nose a little bit on some of these straightaways, feeling he might have a shot if it's given to him in turn one. It's just a matter, though, of thinking about if he goes for the pass and he doesn't immediately get the spot, or it's given to him, Graham Boland will immediately get into the conversation once again for the fight.
Graham Boland has been faster these last few laps. No doubt that Novak is absolutely holding up Mullis and allowing Boland to close. Gap is now down to just over 1 second as they run past the wounded car of John Dragonetti. But Boland is gaining on this battle for the lead. At some point, Mullis may be forced to make the move.
Yeah, it's slowly getting towards that level of urgency. There's still a lot of laps to go in this race. Still, James, under 40 to go. But if you allow, I think, Graham, say, within 5 car lengths, that's where I think we see Mullis really start to push the issue and try and make a move on his teammate.
All valid points, but at this stage, it's time to take our iRacing Midway Race Break and tell you where your favorite driver is running. That, as always, is brought to you by iRacing, the world's leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. iRacing is home to a wide variety of officially sanctioned series, with racing for the Australian Supercars, the Cars Tour, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. As Zach Novak leads Jimmy Mullis and Graham Bullen, Brandon McKissick holds the 4th spot, and Blake Reynolds runs in 5th. 6th belongs to Cody McCauley. Braxton DeWeese runs in 7th. 8th is Lucas Graham. 9th, Anthony Alfredo. And 10th belongs to Jose Solis Jr.
Landon Huffman's in 11th. The quiet race so far from a +9. Nick Olson in 12th. Cronke's in 13th, with Alex Chamberlain in 14th position. RJ Williams is in 15th, with Kobe Wells in 16th position. Andrew Rummel 17th. John Midget in 18th position. Steve Durham 19th, and Austin Dillon having a rough night so far in 20th position. Rest of the field. Go ahead.
Yep, Greg McConey, John Dragonetti, Austin Craven round out the rest of the field, and that concludes our iRacing Midway Race Break for this evening. With over 130,000 drivers on the service and over 80 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is the original esports racing game. For more information, you can visit iRacing.com today as the bobbles get a little bit bigger in the wheel of that number 90 machine, and Jimmy Mullis now might have the run to the inside. Is he going to put the bumper just a bit? It wasn't a lot, but it was just enough. That's the one tap in the chrome horn rule, I think, Justin Prince.
I don't know if he was intending to give that little tiny nudge. He talked about this in that bump and rump DRLT in the Coke race last night, where he wasn't actually planning to go for that. It was more so trying to make sure he entered the corner, not expecting what was happening in front with the older tires, trying to leave them space. But now I think at this point, Mullis wants to go, and Novak's going to give it.
There it is, Jimmy Mullis to the inside of his teammate. The Richmond Raceway cars side by side for the race lead at Richmond Raceway, of all places. Mullis to the inside, Novak to the outside, Bullet in hot pursuit. Big night for Toyota, too. They've got the top 3 spots all locked out, and Mullis leads the lap this time by.
The more they drive side by side, though, James, the more time they lose. Already 3/10 lost. And right there, Mullis finally able to get clear. You can defend on the middle line and pinch as much as you can, but eventually that bottom line is just going to propel you forward.
What can you do if you're Jimmy Mullis? What can you do if you're Zach Novak? He's continued to bleed speed, and Mullis was almost 2/10 faster that last lap. Bolin has continued to charge. He's within 7/10 of a second, but now that Mullis is off the front and away, is there going to be anything Graham Bolin really can do, or is he just going to need another yellow to get the field bunched up?
I'm kind of thinking towards the latter at this point. He didn't get close enough, I think, to really realistically enter the fight quite yet. If there's another side-by-side battle where traffic comes into a factor, I think absolutely he's still got a good chance during this green flag run. Just needs to be patient, because you don't know what's going to happen, especially since there are 5 collapsed cars about a quarter of the track up the road.
Pretty good battle here for 13th, 14th, 15th. Alexander Krunke, Alex Chamberlain, RJ Williams, all side by side racing for position. This is the best battle on track right now. As Chamberlain makes the pass, here comes Krunke looking to hang on the outside. RJ Williams to the inside in the total advantage machine. Landon Huffman also in this race too, and that was one of the big stories from the world of EI racing over the past week, is that Huffman has formed a partnership with Total Advantage to form a new race team with the intent of getting drivers into next season's eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series via the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro in 2020.
Yeah, and that's something a lot of real-world drivers have been getting into in the past few months or so. And it's becoming a popular trend because many teams want to be able to help develop drivers, the next future drivers in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, and potentially see themselves as teams at that level in the next year or two. So great to see another organization, another driver coming in to try and help bring some more valuable exposure to some of these drivers tonight.
I think the interesting thing, especially when you consider the very top of the pylon and you consider the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, obviously the drivers are all drafted into teams, but they still have affiliations with their sim racing teams. Ray Alfalo, of course, legendary member of Slip Angle Motorsports. Malik Gray, Casey Kerwin and Company, part of Dead Zone Racing. So many other teams that we could step out and mention. High Performance Motorsports has a few representatives in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series 2. What do we think about the combo of those two as they run up on some lap traffic here? But what do we think about the combo of the sort of juxtaposition of those two between that team within the Coke Series versus the sim racing team these drivers have had affiliations with since well before there were actual proper affiliations in the Coke Series?
That's actually a good question, because in a lot of cases, and this has been becoming more and more common, it's opened up the door for technical alliances amongst those organizations, because it's kind of put them into a position where you're a teammate with somebody in the series with one of the pro teams. Why not try and work together and have faster and faster race cars? A lot of those developments came up this season, James, in fact, for a couple organizations. Some of the teams, too, were teammates before joining their pro organizations. Take, for example, Melissa Novak, Lockdown Racing. That's the organization they've been a part of for the past few years, and they get to build together and work as a unit for trying to put their cars as quick as they can. So, and overall, I think it's actually, in the long-term picture, James, actually helped the amount of teamwork amongst the organizations on iRacing.
And in turn, I think that might be part of what makes Richmond Raceway Esports so strong, or at least if we're going to be technical, Richmond Raceway Esports fueled by Sunoco so strong, is that it just so happens that the drivers on their team are also part of the same sim racing team, and the cross collaboration between the two Lockdown Racing drivers makes it easier for them to share notes and just be a little bit more communicative across the board.
Absolutely, and in some cases, for some of the organizations too, as they expanded, some of these partnerships, such as Landon Huffman's, have been able to help their organizations as well to add some valuable experience that side. Other drivers, say for William Byron Esports, you have to remember Byron races a lot, especially at this time of the year, on the iRacing service, and it allows drivers to compare notes with real-world competitors, so it all really helps a lot of drivers develop.
And also part of the mission here at the Esports Racing League, one of the things that Anthony Alfredo has pushed, as Alfredo runs the 11th spot at this time, right behind Huffman and Lucas Cram, is that Alfredo wants this league to be a showcase for up-and-coming talent and make it the kind of thing that I think of the very early days of the Indy Racing League. That was Tony George's stated goal, is to try and get drivers who would never otherwise have an opportunity to get seats in top-level open-wheel racing with the ownership of the kart teams at the time, an opportunity to show how good they were and get them up a little bit higher in the food chain. Tony Stewart, of course, is the best example of that. He parlayed a few successful seasons in IRL into what would eventually become a Hall of Fame NASCAR career. That's sort of the same idea here for Alfredo, that you've got some drivers like Melissa Novak who already have made it up there, but, you know, the Brandon McKissicks, the Cody McCauley, some of these drivers who don't have the big-time sim racing affiliations, don't have the big-time real-life affiliations, might get the opportunity based off their runs here to go and get runs with bigger organizations that have more resources and maybe get a little bit more attention on them in real life as well, just because the skills you need in iRacing translates so well to the skills you need in real life motorsports.
I think you hit it right on the head, and this is a great opportunity for drivers like Alfredo as well to see that talent himself on the circuit, see how they race around our competitors. I think some of these competitors have absolutely impressed him based on what we've seen so far throughout the season. That's why we see guys like Cram on the racetrack. That's why we see guys like Jose Solis Jr. on the racetrack. Braxton DeWeese has been really impressive throughout this campaign, especially with the mile-and-a-half circuits. I think there's a lot of drivers who, in turn, because of this series, are raising their stocks in real life, but as well on iRacing as well, to show what they can do in equal equipment compared to some of the pros.
because every car officially is equal here on iRacing. The same kinds of equipment. The only thing that changes is the setup, so it really is a true litmus test for driving skill in a way that you wouldn't necessarily have in real life with all the different parts and the different amount of resources. It's not the same as it would be if you were running everything, if you had the resources of, say, a Penske or a Stuart Haas or a Joe Gibbs Racing or a Hendrick Motorsports, anything down that front. Definitely not quite the same, but maybe for the better, because it ends up being a truer litmus test of talent, as Graham Boland still is yet to gain on either one of Zach Novak or Jimmy Mullis, and Blake Reynolds and Brandon McKissick go P4, P5 at the time with about 10 laps remaining.
Yeah, everyone's just gone into an absolute rhythm, and it's just been so spread out among some of the drivers that it's allowed them to stay calm and get that long run we were expecting potentially. Now, depending on what happens in, say, battles like this you see between McKissick and Reynolds, things might get very testy. Things might get testy as well with the traffic, and all it takes is one bad little piece of contact, whether it's accidental or not, to completely change the complexion of this race. McKissick, though, looks like he is really burned up his right front.
McKissick really has, I think, burned it up the right front. Usually it's the right rear that we're talking about, although we're seeing that with Reynolds a little bit as well. Already starting to put together that trademark slide into the quarters that we've seen the three-car pull off over the last few races. McCauley also putting a good effort in tonight. Nice debut for the driver, the number 62. Won the ERL Sportsman Series race on Monday night. Going to back it up with a top 10 finish this evening, it would seem.
Yeah, he has looked very, very impressive in this race, and I think just how quick and how fast he got into victory lane in his first start in the Sportsman Series just put him in a great position to show what he could do in the Cup car. He's not been the quickest of drivers. Yes, he's currently about a tenth or two a lap off the pace compared to the top three drivers, but he's been able to hold firm. He's been very clean. He's been very conservative and very consistent around the racetrack. No major mistakes from him all day, and that in turn might allow him more opportunities to race in this Cup car in the near future in the series.
I have a feeling that everything is going to sort itself out for him as time progresses, but Jimmy Mullis is out in front by 2.1 seconds, and Mullis already the points leader, looking to extend him and pick up win number 2 on the season to boot. He's got about 6 laps left before he makes that a reality.
And I think just waiting behind Zach Novak for as long as he did, conserving the tires, even when Novak was starting to have to really get off the gas on corner exit to make sure he didn't plow up into the fence, that's what's really allowed him to be able to be about a tenth of a second quicker than second and third position each time around for these past few circuits around Richmond Raceway. I think that in turn put him in a great spot to just run away, while drivers like Bowen, as to be expected, might have burned up his equipment trying to catch up to the top two, and now he's fallen off.
And now Blake Reynolds is right there. We might have a battle right at the end of this race for P3 and P4. Reynolds is all over the rear bumper of Bowen. He jumps to the top side. Bowen will stay down on the bottom to defend. And Reynolds might try and maybe sweep down here, get a good launch off one of these corners, and maybe, just maybe, draw even as Bowen got wobbly out of 2. And now it's the 3-car to the outside of the 18.
It looks like he's going to try and diamond it off the corner, maybe, or at least force Graham to mistake right there. A little bit of contact.
A little bit, not a lot. Here comes Reynolds to the inside. There was no stopping that move. Beautiful crossover from Bowen, who got crossed up, slid way up the hill, and P3 is now back to the 3-car. Blake Reynolds continues to have a really strong set of weeks. Bowen tried to put the bumper back to him and drove it in deep, but couldn't get the run off the corner. And now it might be Brandon McKissick to the inside of the 18. Bowen's got to be careful. He might lose P4.
Yeah, and they're slowly reeling in Zach Novak, who is also slipping and sliding now at the end of this run as well. I think Bowen's right off the cliff. He is struggling to hold on to it down the straight.
There goes McKissick to the inside as Jimmy Mullis comes off of turn 4 for the final time. White flag for Mullis at Richmond. It's McKissick and Bowen that should be the battle here at the end of this race, but all Jimmy Mullis coming through turn 2.
Jimmy Mullis has just been nice and consistent throughout this entire race. Started up at the front. And I think this is an absolute redemption moment for him compared to last night, James.
Jimmy Mullis comes off of turn 4 with a little slide and brings it home as Graham Bolin slides wide in the corner. Blake Reynolds with the drift too, but Mullis and Novak go 1 and 2, and it is Richmond Raceway Esports fueled by Sunoco sweeping the top 2 spots in tonight's Esports Racing League Premier Series event from Richmond Raceway. A big, big night for the Toyotas, and everything that they wanted to accomplish last night that didn't happen, I think they most definitely pulled it off here tonight. Justin Prince.
He's got to be absolutely elated, him and Zach Novak, after some of the luck they had last evening. I think they showed that they can be fast at their home track. They were fast last night. They just couldn't get the luck towards their direction. Tonight, that prep leads into a 1-2 dominating performance.